they've become.
People have already found out.
Wrong man to hunt.
The rest of her body was probably eaten by her killer.
The press called him the Midnight Killer. Actually, I found him to be very intelligent. A woman was killed, brutally murdered by what I believe to be a maniac.
Some sexy underwear.
You're a sponger!
And you're a whore!
You can't imagine what good vitamins there are for you in a fresh fruit shake.
Hey, what happened to you? You look like you spent the whole night with a football team.
No such luck.
I'd say we are talking about a maniac, a psychopath.
Excuse me, Inspector.
Trebo's dead. Died 8 years ago in a fire at a psychiatric hospital.
I know who the killer is. Keep it up. You're water nymphs. Have fun. You're drunk with desire. Touch or laugh. Move around more. Offer yourself, Kim. You love it. More abandon. Let yourself go. Surrender to pleasure.
Gloria,
Oh, hello, Mark.
I'm watching you.
You are?
If I told you I was playing with it, would you come over and help me? You're a sex goddess. You make my member throb with desire. It wants to penetrate your flower and explode.
This is getting boring, Mark. Mark just phoned me. He said that he saw Kim murdered in the pool just now. Do you mind explaining, Inspector? How could perfume kill her?
It attracts bees.
It's your turn to die.
Come out! Show yourself! Kill me if you must! I can't take anymore!
Hi, I'm Scout Taylor Compton from Rob Zombie's Halloween, and you're listening to the Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to this extra special Giallo double bill. We're going to get our Lamberto Bava freak on with his two mid-80s gialli, very much influenced by the American slasher movies, Midnight Killer, aka You Will Die at Midnight, and his batshit crazy Delirium. So yes, well, it's my choice. So obviously I'm quite excited to be talking about these two movies. But before we get onto that, and I think this is episode 188, although we are kind of recording a little bit in advance, so I might have got that wrong, but I think it is 188. So how are we all doing? Joseph, how are you?
Oh, I'm quite good. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well, actually. Thank you very much. I'm just surrounded by cats and look like they're going to be...
It's always good to be surrounded by cats, isn't it?
Are they flushing toilets?
No, but one of them's just gone into my photography drawer, so I might have to go and pull him out in a minute.
Did he make a Harold Plop sound?
Hopefully,
is he going to do
no.
a whoopsie in the photography drawer?
You better not. But so anyway, well, let's see. If I disappear very quickly, you'll understand why. Way. So, Erik, how are you?
I'm awesome, thank you.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Filled with the joys of Lamberto Bava.
Exactly. Well, I'm excited to be talking about these movies. And Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, we've got quite a lot to get through, so we'll whisk through. Let's see what I did there.
Whisk. Oh, very good.
Through the recently seen. So, Erik, have you seen anything you want to tell us about?
Well, you're going to whisk through me fairly quickly, or misses, because I've seen nothing apart from our feature presentation. But I have a special surprise for you, because we are recording this episode now. By the time it goes out, this will be old news. But we're recording this episode slap bang between Joseph's birthday and Justin's birthday, which has just passed. So I've got a song for each of you that I've composed myself from my heart. So I'm going to go with Justin's first, and Joseph, I'll play your one later on in the podcast. Justin, and I hope you'll appreciate the newfound sophistication and maturity in my songwriting. So Justin, this one's for you. It's called Dear Poo Pants.
Dear Poo Pants, happy birthday to you. Dear Poo Pants, poopy 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 poo. The sun is up, the sky is blue. I love Toya and catch a goo goo. Dear Poo Pants, happy birthday to you.
You are welcome. I am touched, and you clearly are as well, Erik. Thank you very much.
Wow, I can't wait to hear mine. I'm almost scared. I'm almost scared to hear mine.
Well, after we've covered the first of the Lamberto Bava double bills, I'll play you your special birthday song, Joseph, because it's your birthday next week.
On Wednesday, the 8th.
Yes. Well, the boys sent me a very nice card with Susie and Miss Vanjie and some ginger-headed thing.
Toya was on it. And there was also this bloke, this goth on it, flicking his hair in the graveyard.
You know what's funny now, Justin, is you now own a piece of Toya memorabilia.
You do, you lucky thing.
I do, yes. It's in Pride of Place, lining the cat tray. So where you know it would. This does its most good. No, I've got it somewhere. I was filed safely away. So thank you very much. I was touched. So, the soon-to-be birthday boy, have you seen anything of note?
Yes. Nathan and I had a movie night this past Friday. We watched a new anthology called All the Creatures Were Stirring. And it's an obvious independent film. I mean, it's kind of plagued with some bad sound and bad, technical flubs here and there, but I somewhat enjoyed it. I thought they put a lot of heart into it, even though it kind of come up short in a few areas. I think the biggest problem, aside from its budget, is that they don't really know how to end any of their stories very well, except for one. It has one story that I really, really loved, and I thought it was very, unique and very suspenseful and very just kind of, bizarre. But overall, there's like 5 or 6 stories. It's, I think they're all based around the Christmas holiday. From what I could tell, although the first story is kind of so haphazard, I couldn't really tell. But, for an independent film, I thought it was okay. That second story, like I said, is phenomenal. The rest of them were okay. So, it's worth one watch. I don't think I'll ever go back and watch it again. But, I had a decent time. So thumbs marginally up. Okay. Well, Nathan, you've seen that presumably as well.
Yes, I liked it. There's a couple of stories, especially the first story, I think, that involves this game of Secret Santa, or the game where you exchange gifts and you could steal one. That game, I think it was a great setup, but it didn't know how to end it. And the ending was very unsatisfying. I'm still confused. I don't get the ending at all. But like Joe said, there were some other stories that were really good and worth seeing. So it's like with most anthologies, hit and miss. But I mean, I would check it out. It's at least worth one watch.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's one to watch out for. I've not seen it. Eric, you probably haven't either of you. No. Okay. Right. Well, thank you. Joseph, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. Nathan, how about you?
Just what I watched with Joe.
Okay, well, fair enough. Well, as I said, we're going to whisk through it very quickly, and that little joke will become clear why I'm overusing it, or over-egging it, as it were. The only thing I've seen this week, because again, I say we are kind of front-loading the episodes quite a lot because we have holidays and stuff coming up. So it's only been a week since recorded, but I caught up with, and again, this is very topical, but it won't be topical by the time this comes out, but it's the new Netflix movie, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, which is the Zac Efron starring a biopic about the serial killer Ted Bundy, which is made by the guy, is it Joe Berlinger, who did he did Blair Witch 2, and then he directed that and a few other sort of true crime sort of things as well. So he did a documentary series on Ted Bundy for Netflix earlier in the year, a 4-parter, like a documentary series. So I think because I'd watched that quite recently, this felt not exactly redundant, but a kind of little bit of deja vu with it. But Zac Efron's really good in it. He's kind of he has that kind of sort of bland psycho look down. But what's kind of interesting about it from a true crime point of view, I kind of guess, is that it kind of tells the story through the 2 women that he's involved with, rather than you hardly see any of his crimes. So it doesn't work in the way a traditional kind of serial killer kind of movie would, in so much you don't really see many of the murders or even the aftermath of the murders. But it's well done, and it's very handsomely put together. But it's not amazing, but that's the only thing I've seen this week, I think. But has anyone else caught that yet?
No, has that opened in cinemas as well as being on Netflix?
It had a limited run here. It was a limited cinema release here, but there was like a hesitation, and then it was finally on Netflix.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it's on. It was on the Spanish Netflix, so I don't know if I presume it's out everywhere else.
It is. It's on the Irish Netflix as well. But Zac Efron's been doing the rounds of the movie review shows in the UK. So I was assuming it was getting a theatrical release, possibly simultaneously. I don't see the point really, but
no, but they started doing that, haven't they, with things? So I kind of guess you really want to see it on the big screen. But marginal recommend. But. Well, we've got that out of the way, so now it's time for 2 very prime slices of Italian cheese coming up. A mysterious serial killer who is terrorizing a city with a long series of murders kills the wife of a police officer who is suspected to be guilty. Sarah, a criminologist who is investigating the case of the legendary Midnight Ripper, a sex maniac who died years before, is convinced that he is innocent and suspects the Ripper is still alive. Midnight Ripper, as I mentioned, or aka You'll Die at Midnight, was Lamberto Bava's follow-up to A Blade in the Dark, and it was released around about the same time that he had a big hit with Demons. And Bava famously said that I think he got burnt out making these 2 gialli fairly, not quite back to back, but he said he felt uncomfortable about making sort of slasher horror gialli where women are menaced, and which is why he kind of changed, but also stayed the same with Delirium, which is the next pick. But this film, I saw it. It's one of a kind of a lesser known gialli. So many of the mid '80s ones. I think the gialli is obviously, as we've spoken about before, and we kind of know kind of had its heyday in the early 1970s with the kind of launched, not certainly not started, but it became very popular internationally with Dario Argento's Bird with a Crystal Plumage, and of course it had been sort of popular as a genre before that, and arguably invented by Mario Bava in 1963 with The Girl Who Knew Too Much, and of course the classic Blood and Black Lace, which we will one day cover, Erik, I promise. So Lamberto Bava he went on to work with his father on many of his films, and started with Macabre in 1980, I think it was his first movie. But he very much seemed to much prefer the more kind of outlandish fantasy horror of things like Demons and Demons 2 and the pretty awful, I remember, Graveyard Shift. But having said that, he's a very, very good...
Graveyard Disturbance. Thank you,
Erik. But I think he's actually a very skilled director. And I remember back in the 80s, I wasn't that taken with his movies. And I think partly because I loved Demons and Demons 2, but A Graveyard Disturbance really put me off his movies. And so but watching the Lamberto Bava 80s gialli, especially the mid 80s ones, the ones we're covering tonight, and also his later 80s, or I think it's 80s or his early 90s Body Puzzle, which was definitely one I'd like to cover on the future episode. There's a lot to enjoy in this. I think Joseph mentioned off air that this kind of well, let him make the comparison to a beloved early 80s slasher movie, but it's just so silly and fun. It's not as silly and fun as and over the top as Delirium, but it's very much starts, to my mind, it feels like an early 70s gialli. It has a police inspector, and like many, if you're a gialli aficionado, you know that many of them will have their kind of quirks with their police inspectors. Usually have things like a liking for boiled eggs or all sorts of kind of strange little character quirks, and the inspector in this one is constantly looking for his pipe. So you have this kind of this whole thing going on, and it's very much like the early 80s, well, the 80s slashers, in so much you actually got a real killer who's come back from the dead. This Franco Tribo, who's this disfigured psychotic who'd been been the Midnight Killer who'd been terrorizing the city some years before, or is it an imposter who started a series of killings? And the film keeps you guessing, and it ends with the most ridiculous and over-the-top sort of denouement, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a little bit, but and we'll warn you before we spoil who the killer is. But the film kind of borrows a lot from the Dario Argento movies. It's in so much that it's very much set piece orientated, and so you have stalking sequences which are very much kind of the American slasher vein in places like the abandoned theatre, the abandoned hotel at the end when you have three girls being chased around this abandoned hotel, or certainly deserted hotel, by a deranged killer in the fog. And so it's just so over the top and silly, especially like scenes where you have this girl who stops her car, and then in the middle of this brightly lit daylight street, she's in her car waiting to get past a traffic jam, and suddenly the killer appears with an ice pick and starts slashing and stabbing at her through the open window. And instead of running towards the traffic jam or down the street, she runs into an abandoned theatre and plays a game of cat and mouse with the killer and ends up ice picked to death. So yeah, it's just I think it's just a lot of fun. It's got the playful perversity running through it. All the characters, especially the male characters, are kind of quite not despicable, but they've all got sort of like slightly pervy quirks, like the colleague of the teenage girls who likes watching his neighbour doing 80s aerobics in a leotard on a balcony, and has I think it's, or am I getting that confused with Delirium? No, it is this film. So yeah, Lamberto Bava's is kind of playful with this, but it actually works as a straight-ahead thriller and a giallo. And although it's not as crazy as Delirium, I think it's a lot of fun. So I'm interested to hear what you guys thought of it. And so I'm thinking, I know, is this the first time watch for you all for this one?
It is for me, yeah.
Okay. Well, what did you...
I'd seen it before.
Oh, you had? Okay.
I'd seen it a long time ago, but I didn't remember anything about it.
Okay. Well, as a virgin, Erik, what was your thoughts, or what were your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I bloody loved it. I loved every second of it. I can't understand why this isn't one I've sought out before. I suppose, like you, back in the 80s, I wouldn't call myself a Lamberto Bava fan. I liked, as you said, Demons, but I thought his other stuff was a bit hokey. But that was me. As we've said this before, comparing everything to Friday the 13th and Halloween and wanting a Hollywood kind of sheen to everything. I just love this movie. As you said, it has the right amount of silliness in it to keep you entertained, and that ending, which we'll discuss, I'm sure, soon, is it's very Scooby-Doo. I like the fact that we're sort of throwing this curveball right from the very start. We're introduced to two characters which we think are probably going to be the two leads in the film, but they actually disappear pretty early on. And I like the way the film plays spot the reference to the giallo, because there's so many things I was like, oh, that looks like a scene from such and such a movie from the 70s. So as you said, the scene where the girl runs into the abandoned theatre is taken directly from Four Flies on Grey Velvet. There's a scene where Anna sees Trebo, is that his name? The killer. She sees him reflected in a mirror, which is lifted from Deep Red. There's one scene that rips off the sort of central mystery of, well, I say rip off, it pays homage, I should say, to the central mystery of Bird with the Crystal Plumage, where we see two people struggling over a knife, and we assume we just make assumptions that the one person is the killer, but we learn later on that we've made a mistake and it's actually the roles have been reversed. So that's very like Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And also there's a scene where the killer stuffs bras into a shop assistant's mouth, which was like in Tenebrae, where he stuffs the pages of the novel into her mouth. So again, he's riffing on all those Dario Argento classics, I'm assuming deliberately. And also this decision of the three girls to, I don't know why, go to an abandoned hotel or an unoccupied hotel. I don't know where they got the permissions to do this, but that was like Torso, I thought, where the three girls, go up to the mansion in the hills for the final half of the movie. I don't know if did you mention the electric whisk yet?
Well, not explicitly.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's a scene in, like, when you said to me, we're covering You'll Die at Midnight, and you said it's the scene where a girl defends herself with a whisk. I had visions of her just taking an egg whisk out of the drawer, like a manual whisk, and just sort of waving it at the killer. Now it's an electric whisk she uses, but it's still kind of it's the most ineffectual weapon that a person can use. Probably since Alice thought that throwing some string at Mrs. Voorhees would, deter her in the original Friday the 13th. The whisk scene, is wonderfully ludicrous. I don't know how this girl thinks it's going to help her in her plight. Maybe that smoothie she makes looks disgusting. Did anyone notice that? It's just this brown sludge with chunks in it. It looks like vomit. I think it's supposed to be like a fruit smoothie. It's like, ew.
It looked like Harold's Plobs.
It looked just like Harold's Plobs. I thought the score was really funky. We got a bit of it there in the intro and in the trailer. It reminded me a lot of the score to Absurd. Now, I forgot to check if it's the same person who did the score to this and Absurd, but I might, if I get a chance, I'll Google that while somebody else is talking. I love the film. As you said, it works well as a murder mystery, but with really ludicrous elements and a ludicrous revelation at the end, which is as high a compliment as I can pay. I loved it. Possibly not as much as the second half of our double bill, but I still loved it.
Joseph, what are your thoughts on You Will Die at Midnight?
Well, I would like to preface this with it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I'll probably offend a few people saying this, but I hate when people compare Lamberto to his father and they say he's not as good. My response to this is, so what? He's doing his own thing. Why does he need to be compared to his father? Why can't you take his filmography under his own condition, under his own terms? Why do you always have to, say, well, it's just not as good as Mario's films? And it just kind of bugs me, and I just wanted to put that out there. I'm probably alone in that, maybe, but I loved You'll Die at Midnight. I thought it was just so just the right amount of that mid-'80s kind of trash, Italian trash. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of Scream for Help, because it has this tone, this TV movie tone, and it has that lead, that bland kind of G golly whiz, I'm Ione Skye's doppelganger, and I even have the requisite lisp. Kind of final girl who's kind of, all shucks through the whole film, despite all this kind of ludicrous stuff going on. And I love the whisk scene, because I was sitting there watching this and I'm thinking, well, first of all, after the whisk scene, they cut to the scene of her two friends and they're jogging through the park. And it really reminded me of like a Summer Breeze commercial. So I was sitting there thinking the voiceover would be like when it shows those two girls jogging. It's like, when your best friend's at home getting her pussy whisked, please make sure she's using Summer Breeze.
What is Summer Breeze?
It's a female hygiene product.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I asked. La 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 la.
But yeah, the movie is just absolutely ludicrous. The mystery. This is one mystery that fooled me, because like I was saying off air, and I'm sorry, Eric, that this is in your notes, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it. And I'm getting into some spoiler territory here, so be warned. The central mystery is that this guy who was, what's his name again? He's got that weird name.
Trebo.
Trebo, yeah. This Trebo, they think he's come back. We see him killing people, but it's not Trebo. It's Anna, who is, I can never remember who she is to the plot, but she's basically wearing this Trebo mask, and it's very Happy Birthday to Me. There's clues throughout, like, there's plaster heads of old serial killers that these women just kind of study. So I guess they don't really cheat, but it's just so goofy. The whole movie's like this. There's like plot turns that are just like this. I don't know. It's a really fun Lamberto Bava film. I don't enjoy it as much as the movie we're about to discuss, but I did have a lot of fun with it. There's some genuine suspense pieces here throughout. Although the film is kind of bloodless and, compared to the next film, it's rather lacking in the nudity department as well, which is kind of odd for an Italian, giallo or slasher from the mid-'80s. But no, I had a lot of fun with it. I would definitely see it again. I would definitely recommend it. So thumbs up for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph. Nathan, what are your thoughts on You'll Die at Midnight?
I liked it, although I thought a lot of characters did not die at midnight.
Well, that's true.
Just a thought there. And I got to say, I don't understand Monica at all because, yes, she picks up an electric mixer or whisk, if you will, and holds it out, and actually seems to be backing the killer off, which is kind of funny too if you think about it. But it's like the second she steps too far and it comes unplugged, she just sits it down and like turns her back to the killer and puts her head against the wall. And it's like, no. Like,
I was going to mention that she's like, she has no fight back whatsoever.
No.
Half the characters in this movie have no fight back at all. It's like absurd.
She even turns her back on the killer, like just waiting. Okay, here's my back. Stick the
maybe she's influenced by the Blair Witch. So that's why she's her face to the wall.
It's got to be it.
Yeah,
it's the only solution that makes sense. But yeah, the movie is really funny. I feel like some of the death scenes, they have this blaring music playing over them that doesn't make it very scary.
The music, I swear to God, it sounds like an old 80s like a dramedy or a sitcom. It's like it's all upbeat and funky. I love it.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't like it because I think it's fun. It makes the death scenes actually funny. Whereas I think if somebody put like good music to these death scenes, they actually could be kind of creepy. Just saying. But ultimately, I think the movie was a lot of fun. Definitely worth watching. And the whisk scene is just amazing. It's probably one of my favorite giallo scenes of all time.
It's like a ridiculous version of the drill scene in Body Double.
Yes, I don't know. It's the dumbest, like Erik said, it's like the dumbest weapon to use to try to fight back. And
I'm assuming she's in a kitchen. Couldn't she have grabbed like a butcher knife or anything? She goes for a whisk, like an egg beater. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Although the killer ends up using it on her. I guess it's kind of a vengeance thing.
Yeah, hence my Summer Breeze commercial.
I say I enjoyed it, Justin.
Excellent. Right. Well, I'm glad. There's a couple of other things that jumped out at me. The thing because the giallo, you don't watch a giallo you watch it for kind of over the top plotting, and this certainly has a lot of it. So you have this criminologist who also happens to be the professor, I kind of guess, of these students, and as the killer says, she's wearing the mask, the crispy killer's mask, and I love why it does remind me of Happy Birthday to Me. Not only do they at the end they pull off the mask to reveal that it's actually the female criminologist underneath it, but she falls the final girl, played by Lara Wendell, who comes back into the abandoned hotel and then sees the criminologist that she's known for wearing very high socks all the way through the movie. And I kind of thinking, this must be a plot point. Nobody wears high socks like that unless they're like a 12-year-old girl in a 1960s movie.
Or in the Brady Bunch.
Or the Brady Bunch. And it is a plot point at the end, because Laura Wendell comes in and then sees these socks, these legs sticking out, and thinks that it is her criminology professor. But in fact, the killer has taken one of the girls, the one she killed, did unmentionable things to with a whisk, and taken off her own socks and put them on the corpse for Laura Wendell.
I love how they
in
did
about
this.
5 seconds.
I love how they did that. It's just so stupid.
Yeah, and especially when they take off because the mask is very convincing, and it's actually this film is peppered with people you would recognise from other movies, and certainly from other Lamberto Bava movies. And the killer, who isn't really the killer because he's not, he's playing the mask, is an actor called Peter Pitch, a German actor. He was in Demons along with a number of the other the cast, but it's the mask, just like the mask in Happy Birthday to Me, is very realistic. But when you think pulled off, it looks like it was made out of papier-mâché.
Because in Happy Birthday to Me, when they rip the masks off, it's like rubber, like skin looking, so it looks kind of real. But in here, it looks like a big, almost like a bowl. Like you could eat cereal out of it or something.
Apart from the eye holes that would let all milk fall out.
Yeah. One thing I was going to mention, and I don't know if you mentioned it or not, Erik, but who is the girl? What's the girl's name with the giant red hair?
Is it Joya?
It's Joya. It's her, isn't it?
Mm.
Is it one of the students? Is it?
It is. Yeah, it's the one that gets killed
Erik,
downstairs.
You don't remember her?
I do. Yeah. What about her?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm surprised you didn't point it out because her hair is just ginormous.
I didn't find her hair that ginormous. Maybe I'll have to rewind and have a look.
It didn't save her, unfortunately.
Didn't save her, no.
But I did like
I was just going to say Laura Wendell with her short cropped hair. She looked a bit like the lead singer of the Psychedelic Furs, I thought, Richard Butler.
Yes, I love the kind of goofiness of the whole showdown at the end. Is they're in this abandoned? Well, I'm not entirely sure why they were at that hotel that had no concierge or anyone there at all working reception. They were the three students alone in this place, and there was not a single person. It was a bit like The Beyond, wasn't it? Which is a film we'll be covering on Patreon. At the end, it goes foggy, and there's no one in this whole town apart from the main characters who are being.
I was just wondering because her dad is the police chief or whatever. Maybe he had permission for them to use this abandoned hotel for their thesis. So I don't know why they'd want to, but
it's very strange. So, well, as we've got another film to get through, shall we talk about some background? So, has anyone got any? Nathan, what have you got on Midnight Killer?
Nothing.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Joseph. How about you?
What? No.
Well, at least Erik, what have you got?
Erik is dying right here.
I know. The only thing I have is that Daniela from Werewolf Woman wrote the script because people say the word whore a lot.
Yes. Well, you heard that. Yeah, there was a bit of.
I have a few things about Delirium for later.
Okay, right. Well, I've only got a few bits. So, like I mentioned before, a couple of things was this is Lamberto Bava's second giallo film, and I agree with you, Joseph, actually about the because Mario Bava obviously did a number of seminal gialli, including of course Twitch the Death Nerve, which is kind of the blueprint of Friday the 13th, whether or not it was actually ever acknowledged by the makers of the Crystal 8 movies, but it's chalk and cheese, really. I mean, literally cheese when it comes to Lamberto Bava movies. But I do, as much as I admire Mario Bava and his filmmaking process and a lot of his movies, and that they are exceptional movies, I probably find myself coming back to Lamberto Bava movies more. Certainly, Demons and Demons 2.
What I was going to say is that I think Mario Bava, he makes better films, but Lamberto Bava makes better movies.
Yeah.
Lamberto's oeuvre is more entertaining, I suppose, for an audience like ourselves. Although
that's creepy.
What?
You used the word oeuvre, and I had that in my notes at one point.
Ooh. Wow. But yeah, I do. I would agree. I find Lamberto Bava's movies really rewatchable, particularly from this era. Mario Bava's I love as well, though, I must admit, although it's mainly his later ones, his sort of late 60s, early 70s ones that I like the best.
So, yes, well, Lamberto Bava, I think it touched on it earlier, said that he was uneasy making these types of films, which doesn't really come across in the finished product. And he said, was quoted as saying, "I find doing scenes where women get stabbed to death repugnant. Dario Argento does it so well, but I feel sick as soon as I see the knife in the murderer's hands," which seems strange, I suppose, given how the kind of brutality of some of these films. It seems a little bit odd. But a couple of bits of background. I mentioned about Peter Pitch, who was in Demons. He was one of the punks in the car in Demons. He was a German actor who was in a number of Italian 80s horror movies and is now an artist. Leonardo Draviglio, who played Niccolo Levi, who was the policeman who gets who kickstarts everything and gets killed by Anna in that kind of switcheroo when you think he's attacking her. He was in Derek Jarman's Sebastian, which surprisingly there was some connection with Delirium, because David Brandon, who was in Delirium, was the lead in that film. So
that's a bold film.
Very bold film, yes. I think. Actually, a few of the other people in the woman Monica with the blender. I think I've got a name down as Elijah, but I think that's probably a spell check thing. Miglio was also in Demons, so there's a lot of faces, and the inspector. Whose name I haven't written down was in Lucio Fulci's New York Ripper, as well as many other movies. So,
the opening bit where the guy is finding out that his wife or his girlfriend or whatever is cheating on him, wasn't that scene just ridiculous? I mean, she stabs him. He's trying to drown her in the sink, and I was reading a review. I can't remember what review it was, but. If I had the source, I would give them credit. But they were just saying that a lot of You'll Die at Midnight didn't really measure up to that intensity in that scene because it's so over the top and ridiculous. And I would have to disagree, although that opening moment is quite hysterical.
Yes, well, it is kind of
quite a startling opening. Yes,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I love he sticks that girl's head in that dirty dishwater, and I'm like, I'd rather you just stab me than have to endure that. It's just ugh.
Do we think he was? It's implying that she was having an affair with the woman because she turns up at the scene as well, doesn't she?
I think so.
So yes, well. Do we have any feedback on this, Joseph? I know it's.
Yeah, we actually have a little bit. Okay, You'll Die at Midnight Facebook feedback. Tim S. Turner says, all I know is that I love that poster. And if you are on our Facebook group, you can see that poster. Michael Ferrari says, I've not seen this picture, but it's always nice to see a knife in the butt poster. Once again, if you are on our Facebook group, you can see this poster. J.W. Durbin says, looks cheeky. I'm assuming he's mentioning the poster. I don't recall this one. Tom Burkhead says, I don't actually remember anything about this, but reading my old review, I apparently liked it a fair bit, finding the killings suitably vicious and the climax intense. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Amanda Reyes says, ashamed to admit this is one I haven't seen, but the soundtrack is boss. AJ Anderson Yakukowitz says, the Mo Lambava, the Mo Betta. Okay. Jason Miller says, never seen it. What's your thoughts? And well, Jason, if you will just rewind a little bit, you will hear our thoughts. Okay, over on the forums, Mr. Palmer says, for some strange reason, I really like this one. On Instagram, Dave Felter says, not bad, but nothing great in my opinion. Jallow Guy says, decent movie. Maybe I'll give it a rewatch soon. And on Twitter, The Bitter Bastard and Kelly Show says, I've never had the pleasure of seeing this one. I'll have to check it out on YouTube. And Fernando Viterazzo di Carvalho says, great movie. And that's all the feedback we have on You'll Die at Midnight.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone who wrote in. And I think as we are fitting 2 in tonight, which is one of Erik's usual Friday nights,
stop it.
We'll skip the after the credits, if that's okay, and go straight on to a Delirium.
Oh, we have to play we have to play Joseph's birthday song first.
Oh, okay.
Happy birthday to you. This is the song called I Hope Your Birthday is the Tops.
Oh, it's your birthday. Oh, it's your birthday. I hope it's the absolute tops. I hope it's not as bad as Harold's flops. Ew. A flop in the dark, the big question mark about Harold's flops. I hope your birthday, Joseph, is the absolute tops. Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine Nathan is white-faced with revulsion.
I think this may have to go on YouTube. It could rival Rebecca Black and her Friday craze.
Well, he needs to do a music video for it in that case.
Yeah.
Well, can a mashup of Toya and Harold?
I can see that new working. What in the butt?
What in the butt?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're free to go on to Delirium now that all the birthday greetings are out of the way.
Well, thank you, Erik. I think both myself and Joseph, I can speak for you, Joseph, I think we feel very humbled by your...
You're welcome.
Your work.
It's bringing joy to people that really fills my heart with so much pleasure.
So much joy I could shit.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, from one bit of Delirium to another. And I couldn't find there were trailers for Delirium, but they were just music. There was no dialogue. So I've got a bit of dialogue from the movie to get started. So here is some dialogue from Delirium.
I questioned that kid, Mark. He didn't try to hold back. He told me exactly what he witnessed here last night. It appears absolutely certain he saw a murder. He's the only witness we have, but I don't think he'll be very useful. All we know is the murderer was blonde. But there are lots of blondes, both men and women, and wigs besides.
But why send that photograph? And pose Kim's body in front of a poster of me? And why was she killed? Right here, at my house.
If we had the answers to all your questions, the case would be solved now.
But by sending that photograph of her here, it looks like it points to me. Why?
I don't know. And that's not the only thing that's baffling.
Well, before I read the synopsis, that sounds like the same voiceover artist who did the classic line reading in pieces about fucking on a waterbed. Or is it just...
It does, doesn't it?
It just sounds really like her, but it probably is. But
probably was.
A former hooker runs a successful men's magazine called Pussycat. An obsessed admirer systematically slaughters her models, occasionally increasing the magazine's output, and supplies the mistress with pictures of their disfigured corpses taken in front of her semi-nude posters, visible in the background. Is she going to be the psycho's next victim? So, well, this is Lamberto Bava's follow-up to, well, not follow-up, but it has no connection apart from some of the kind of stable Lamberto Bava players in the film. But this was probably made around about the same time as he made Demons 2, I would have thought. I don't know which one came first. But... whatever they were smoking or taking in 1987, I wish I had a little bit of it myself, because everything went batshit crazy. It was balls to the wall, madness, dry ice, shoulder pads, models with giant bee heads. Lamberto Bava, from what I've read, said that he tired of doing the giallo, but he liked the idea of doing giallo from the point of view of the killer, although it's not really successful in that, and so much it doesn't feel much different in its makeup to a normal, if you can call any giallo normal. But everything is just kind of over the top and deliriously silly, including, and gets incredibly sleazy towards the end, which we'll talk about. But you have Serena Grandi, who was probably infamous or famous in Italy as being a kind of a large boobied lady who did lots of stripping off. In this film, if you want to see boobies, you see a lot of boobies. There's no boobs in the You'll Die at Midnight. And I think actually, Joseph, you might have been on something. I don't know if it was the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually shot for TV, because there was quite a lot of those gialli for TV movies. Dario Argento was making them at this time as well. But this definitely wasn't for TV, or certainly if it was for like a Skinny Max type of TV. It starts with boobs and it goes on and on and on. And of course, as you might expect, with a film set around a topless magazine. And so, of course, this harks back actually to, it's almost like, you could say it's almost like Blood and Black Lace, in so much it's set around a coterie of beautiful models whose clothes and bras ping off every opportune moment or inopportune moment, and being killed off one by one by a killer. And the quirk here, apart from the gaudiness of the kind of late 80s Italian villas and shoulder pads and gold everywhere, is that when the killer kills the models, he or she sees them as grotesque kind of monsters, I kind of guess. In the first one we see, and it's probably the most famous image from the movie, is the woman whose head, it becomes a giant eyeball with bloody red veins running off from the side, who gets pitchforked and dies in Serena's pool after leaving a house after a photo shoot. And And on it goes. So models dropping left, right, and centre. All of them being seen by the killer with this kind of grotesque sort of mask. Although bizarrely, Serena Grandi, who is the titular, as it were, heroine of the movie, is not actually seen with these kind of giant disfiguration. But the film just goes all out in craziness and Eurodubbing, everything you can imagine. This movie is probably one of the most bizarre and outlandish gialli of the late 80s. Funnily enough, it shares a title with the Mickey Haggard Delirium from 1972, which is even more batshit crazy. And it's another film I'd like to cover at some point. You could imagine that's even more batshit crazy than this, if you can believe it. But lots more to say about this movie. But is it any of your first time? I imagine you've all seen Delirium before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, let's start with Nathan. What are your thoughts on Delirium?
I absolutely love Delirium because to me it's like the equivalent of a crazy late 80s slasher movie as opposed to like the early 80s. I look at Delirium to be like the equivalent of that. Like it's just a late version of a giallo that would have been maybe more serious had it been filmed in the 70s. But maybe not. I mean, there's some cheesy ones in the 70s too, so I could be totally wrong on that, but I think Delirium is a lot of fun. I absolutely love that the killer sees the grotesque, like monsters before, he kills them. The beekeeper scene I thought was hilarious. I mean, it's like a naked woman just like screaming and all these bees like stinging her, and it seems to go on for a little while. The actual scene does, and I don't understand Gloria's nonchalant attitude when it comes to Mark calling her and making some extremely sexually suggestive remarks about her. And I mean, he's basically sexually harassing her, and her attitude about it is just like, oh, Mark, you're not funny. And I don't know. It just seems very, like I said, nonchalant about somebody who's basically like sexually harassing you. And what's worse is that he's actually kind of the hero in the end.
Yeah.
So it's like he's such a scumbag and he's like the hero. It's the weirdest thing.
Are you wearing your panties?
Yes. It's just, I don't know. It's completely insane, but just so is the whole movie. And I love the death scenes. Like you said, the pitchfork scene at the pool, that was great. And the beekeeper scene I thought was a lot of fun. It's just all around, I think it's a fun movie. So I would definitely recommend it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. What about you, Joseph?
Oh my goodness, I love this film. I don't even really know where to start.
Was it a first time watch for you? Is it your first time?
No, I'd seen this a long time ago. But like You'll Die at Midnight, I remembered nothing about it. But this movie, watching it again this week, oh my goodness, it is so batshit crazy. I love the. First of all, I love Serena Grandi from the bottom of my heart. Oh my God! But moving away from that, I love the eyeball head and the bee head stuff like that. That stuff is so deliriously just insane. And like Nathan was saying, I love that this Mark guy, he's such a scumbag, and he's calling her and doing all this lurid talk and stuff. And at the very end, he shoots the killer in the dick with a gun, and then they just kind of look at each other, and he just smiles like, "I just saved the day."
Also, doesn't he even ask her, "Oh, can I call and tell you how hot you look from now on?" And she's like, "Oh, yes." I'm like, "What?"
And then there's the one scene where I think it's Serena Grandi. She's you see her assets throughout the film. I mean, she's in the bathtub with George Eastman's character, and then her brother just kind of opens the door and he's like, he catches them kind of making love, quote unquote, in the tub. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were here. I'm sorry. Goodbye." And he closes the door. It's just so awkward. It's just such an awkward scene.
Did you notice? Sorry to interrupt, but did you notice that if you watch carefully, George Eastman is humping her thigh bizarrely.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was just about to mention that because when they're doing the kind of the back and forth quick cuts with them, quote unquote making love, he's humping like the outside of her leg. I'm like, did this motherfucker go to the Tommy Wiseau school of like screen humping?
They didn't want to get pregnant.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, this movie is just so bonkers. I love the central mystery too. It's just so batshit crazy. The big reveal is it's her brother. And am I right in thinking his motive is that these people, it's just one of those silly, these people were bad, they had to go so I can protect you motives?
Well, I think it was kind of he wanted to kill her, didn't he? But only if he could have a look at her breast one last time.
Yeah, I think he was like in love with her incestuously or something, but he wanted to basically get rid of everyone so he could have her to himself or something. I don't really know, but it's just so ludicrous. Thumbs way up for me. This is the type of like Italian movie that I love because it really reminds me of Fatal Frames because it's so soaked in excess. It's right smack dab in the middle of that mid to late 80s kind of neon grime kind of emanating from every pore of the screen. This feels like a movie where like a bunch of stockbrokers who kind of live in lavish houses, they get coked up during the weekend, and if they don't go clubbing, they go out and make a movie like this. So thumbs way the fuck up on Delirium. I fucking loved it.
Wow. Swear words.
Swear words indeed. Well, Erik, what are your thoughts on Delirium?
Well, I effing Jeffin love this film as well. Now, I've seen this a good few times over the years, so it wasn't new to me, this one. I as everyone has been saying, I love the gimmick of the killer seeing his victims with these sort of deformities, like having a giant eyeball and having a giant bee's head. I only wish maybe that they'd done more with that, because I think it's just on two occasions, isn't it? It's just the eyeball and the bee, really, that we see, and then that kind of device is dropped then for the rest of the film. The rest of the film is still bloody entertaining, but it would be nice maybe if they'd carried on with that sort of motif. When I was watching it this time, one thing I noticed that I have missed every time I've watched this film before is that when I was watching the opening scene where they're doing the photo shoot in the swimming pool, I was thinking, oh my God, it's like that video for Boys, 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 in brackets, Summertime Love by Sabrina. And then I realized that it's the Sabrina that's in the film. Now, this might mean nothing to Nathan and Joseph, because I'm not sure if this was a hit single in the US, but in the summer of 1988, Sabrina, who's in this film, had a big hit. She had many big hits, if you know what I mean. She had a big hit with a song called Boys, Boys, Boys.
Oh, yeah. I remember that song.
Yes, and that's her in the movie who gets stung to death by the bees. I didn't realize she had
Really?
Yes. Yeah, she plays a character called Sabrina as well, which must have been taxed. The other thing I really noticed this time was that Gloria's apartment is horrendous. I mean, she has this lovely villa with a nice swimming pool and all that, but oh my God, all that white leather furniture and marble surfaces and so many ornaments, all those ornaments. No. It's horrible. Did nobody think the decor was horrible?
It was horrible, but I noticed how they'd obviously hired the place, hadn't they? Because they didn't knock anything over, did they, during the end of it?
Well,
all those ornaments could have gone flying, but sadly they didn't.
I much preferred the cop's flat in Midnight Killer, because he had it done up like St. Elmo's Fire. It had kind of a warehousey look with a mural on the wall. That was much more my 80s taste. This one, just too many ornaments. I wasn't sure about George Eastman's character in this film, what his purpose was. I mean, I know he's supposed to be a red herring, but his character drops in and then drops out quite abruptly with no sort of reasoning why. And we see him lying to Gloria, saying that, I'll be landing back in Rome on Monday, when we can see clearly he's standing opposite the Colosseum. So he's obviously in Rome, but we don't find out why he's lying. So, I mean, I'm not complaining because the film's so entertaining. I'm just curious to know, was there maybe more to George Eastman's plot line that we didn't see? I'm not sure. And I love, as Nathan was saying, I love the character of the wheelchair-bound Mark, who lives next to Gloria and just sends her really obscene phone calls, which she just laughs off. I mean, this is, 32 years ago now, so maybe different.
If you think about it, if you think about it, Mark is probably a sociopath, because there's that scene where the guy, I think it's his doctor, he's telling me, like, this is all psychological, you can walk. And then at the end of the film, when he's like talking to her in the hospital, he's like, hey, I'm doing a little bit of walking here lately. I guess I just need to release some demons or something like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, you just wanted to shoot somebody in the dick.
Yeah.
And he's the hero. It's just ridiculous.
Well, he certainly made the killer's member throb.
Yes,
with pain.
It's kind of like, because it's obviously a riff on Rear Window, isn't it? But Hitchcock left out the bit with James Stewart asking his neighbour to wank him off.
Yeah, and saying he makes a member throb and how he wants to penetrate her flower.
Oh my God, my neighbour just got shot in the dick.
The other thing about Mark that was interesting was he's in a wheelchair because he was in a car accident with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend died, or his fiancée it was. And it's also mentioned that Gloria's husband died in a car accident, and I'm wondering if the two car accidents were linked, or did I miss something? No? Was that ever mentioned?
I think it was all kind of meant to be the idea that he could walk, that he was going up and killing people, although we did actually see him see the first murder, didn't we? But he was...
No, but I'm just wondering, did Mark's car and Gloria's husband's car collide or something in an accident that we didn't see sort of that happened before the film started? Or... Because it just seems coincidental that these two people living side by side both had loved ones who got killed in a car accident.
Yes.
Anyway... as you said, there are tons of boobies in the movie. It's wall-to-wall balubas, like from start to finish, and I can confirm that according to the DVD extras that I was watching, that it was made for cinemas. So that's why we get extra boobage in this one. I love that sequence where Gloria is in the department store and she's been menaced by the killer, and she knocks over the mannequin and it falls several floors to the ground, actually in an effect that would probably have been used in the 70s as to show a real person falling off a balcony, because they were notorious for using mannequins, these sort of immobile objects to show people falling off high spaces. I love the fact that the killer has a sped up chipmunk voice as well, which makes it sort of suitably unthreatening. But overall, yeah, wonderfully sort of convoluted and ludicrous in all the best ways. And the finale involves poor old Gloria having to strip down to her white negligee, because this is the 80s after all, whilst the wounded killer sort of, barfs blood all over her norks. So it was the censor's worst nightmare, I'm sure, at the time. I love the film. It's even better than Midnight Killer, and that's saying something. And it's once again proof that Lamberto Bava is, whatever people say about him, he's highly skilled at making entertainment. And Delirium is definitely one I'd revisit, every couple of years at least.
Excellent. Well, did anyone else notice the kind of the meta moment that when Serena Grandi's character is visiting George Eastman's character at the studio, that she bumps into three people dressed in demons makeup?
Oh, yes. I didn't notice that was demons makeup, though.
Well, I think it looked like they kind of the sort of extras as demons. It might have been, but I thought it was probably just like a bit of a meta, a playful nod by Lamberto towards his kind of demons movies, perhaps. But I liked it's funny, kind of the talking. We talked about Midnight Killer and said about how it reminded me a little bit about the Beyond, in which film we're covering for Patreon this month. But with this film, it was when Sabrina gets killed by the bees. There's a close up of these little animatronic bees on her butt, which a bit like the famous pipe cleaner spiders in the Beyond. It was kind of a bit like that, which I thought was quite entertaining. So, I was trying to think what else to say about this. I love Simon Boswell, who did the music for this, and I love the way that it's actually some quite beautiful music in it, and then it gets very bombastic in very kind of 80s sort of thing. Now, there's a couple of people that we haven't mentioned in this. Again, it's a bit of a who's who of Italian horror giallo royalty with this, and one of those, of course, is Daria Nicoldi, who was famously married to Dario Argento, and of course is the mother of Asia Argento, who was in Deep Red with Dario Argento, and one of the just leading on from that, one of the little bit of backgrounds, apparently Dario Argento was linked to this movie at one point. There's also, and I can't remember, and I should have looked up how to pronounce the name, but it's a Capuchin or Capucin who played the kind of the bitchy rival sort of movie mogul who the predatory lesbian, which these films seem to have is a kind of another one of these kind of typecast things that you had predatory lesbians through many of these gialli and films like Case of the Bloody Iris, and a film that this is kind of similar to in sort of in so much again about models being murdered. It's The Crimes of the Black Cat. We had a similar character, but I really enjoyed her, apart from the vaguely offensive through today's filters. But I enjoyed her kind of bitchy dialogue when her and Serena were kind of going at it, as it were, verbally in her office. And of course George Eastman again. He was in he was the Anthropophagus, and he was the killer in Absurd, and he was in Anthropophagus with Serena Grandi, who was the lady who had a fetus pulled out between her legs and munched on by George Eastman. So they had a good working relationship already.
Hey, didn't I munch on your fetus in that movie before? Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, sorry, I overshot myself there a little bit, but some background. So Joseph, do you have anything for us?
What? No. But I do have a question.
What is it?
Well, I noticed in You'll Die at Midnight, there was a character named Joya, but I don't recall there being a character named Joya in this film, because I know it's also named Delirium, Bodas of Joya.
Well, I think it's Gloria is English for Joya.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking as well. I'm assuming Joya must be the Italian version of Gloria.
I got lost there for a second. I was like, okay, I'm a little confused, but okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Okay. Well, thank you for your question, Joseph. Nathan, what have you got for us?
Nothing.
You've got to say it in Italian.
Nada. No, that's Spanish. No, that's not.
Oh, no. Never mind. Erik astray.
Might be
I got my Gugats in the refrigerator.
Well, before we piss off all two of our Italian listeners, Erik, have you got anything for us?
Yes. George Eastman pulled a fetus out of Serena Grandi's tummy in Anthropophagus, and he munched on
it. Also, Erik, dear listeners, if you go listen to our absurd commentary, Erik spends a lot of time outlining George Eastman's willy.
Only at the start, and it's not that long. His thing is that long, I should say, but I don't spend that much of the duration talking about it. Because he's wearing very tight jeans in Absurd when he's running towards the camera, and you can just see which way he dresses. I'm just saying. Lamberto Bava's son Fabrizio, aka Roy Bava, was the assistant director in this movie. He had the same role on You'll Die at Midnight, on Demons 2, and he's since gone on to do assistant director work on the Argento movies Giallo and The Card Player, and also on, strangely, Zoolander 2 for some reason. I think some of it was shot in Italy. Carl Zinni as Creepy Mark. He was one of the lead dreamboats in Demons in 1985. He gets possessed and ends up, I think he begs to be killed or something. Sounds grim. Lino Salame, who plays the inspector. He was the bad boy in Demons, one of the punks, and he's also a security guard in Demons too. So this is very, this is like John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis. This is the kind of troupe that Bava had assembled. And as I said, Sabrina Salerno, who plays Sabrina, she was a pop star. She had one huge hit, although most of the fellas were interested in her two huge hits that she had. She had a single called Boys, brackets, Summertime Love in 1988. The video had Sabrina in an ill-fitting bikini in a swimming pool, and all her publicity appearances, including on BBC's flagship pop music show Top of the Pops, involved her in a top that could barely contain her bountiful bosoms. I think the BBC received a flood of complaints because there's a clip of her on Top of the Pops you'll see where she's wearing, well, it's about 7 sizes too small for her. There's my phone, sorry. 7 sizes too small for her and her boobs are popping out. And apparently on a show in Spain in New Year's Eve in 1987, she was performing a song on a live TV show and one of her boobs did pop out of her top and it caused uproar at the time. And that's all the booby background I have. Justin, over to you.
Okay, well, talking of boobies, Serena Grandi, as we mentioned, was after the fetus munching in an Anthropophagus, she went on to mostly be in kind of softcore erotic type movies throughout the 80s and the 90s. She's still acting, I think. She was actually born Serena Fagioli, so which is a strange name, but so she changed her name to Grandi. She was actually a graduate in computer programming, so she certainly, although she may have played a bit dumb, I mean, I think this film was supposed to be a kind of her first serious role, if you can believe that. She's not very good in it, really. I mean, she handles herself, as it were, okay, but it didn't lead to a massive amount. And more recently, she in 2006 she stood as a candidate for a far right party in Italy. Unfortunately, and in 2017 she was on the equivalent of Celebrity Big Brother in Italy. So Capucine, or I'm sure it's probably not Capucine because it's not like Cappuccino, but Capucine was she was an old-style movie star from the 1950s, and she was under contract to Columbia Studios, and she killed herself by throwing herself out of a window from a 9th-story building in 1990. So shortly after this film was completed, which is a shame. But what else was there? I did have a couple of things. It was filmed in and around Rome, began shooting in 1986, September. And as I mentioned before, Dario Argento was attached at one point, but pulled out due to script changes. And the script was co-wrote by Luciano Martino, who was the brother of Sergio Martino, of course, who made lots of fantastic gialli in the in the 70s and also in some in the 80s and the 90s. He was the husband of Edwige Fenech, who, of course, is the queen of giallo. So, but that's all I have on Delirium. So, is it time for You Know What?
I think so.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Who's the hottest director in Italy? Lamberto Lava.
I think you should take a moment's silence.
Joseph would laugh because he
Actually, I kind of liked it, Eric. I was just going along with the sound.
Yeah, well, I was so busy in the recording studio recording those wonderful songs for you both that I didn't really have time to concentrate on the joke.
Did you catch that 3:00 jet to Tokyo in time?
I don't get that reference.
It was basically me saying that you're this big jet-setting rock star.
Oh, right, yeah. I am a big jet-setting rock star. Yeah.
But sometimes with jokes, you can you make them off the cuff and they can be really funny. And I'm sure that will happen one day, Eric.
Shade.
Well, thank you. So
I'm serving you homemade joke realness.
You are indeed. Well, let's have a break just for the moment, just to play the contact details, how to get in contact with the show, because after that, Joseph, do you want to come back with some thoughts from our dear listeners on Delirium?
Thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues. Be sure to search for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoy our show, consider becoming a Patreon subscriber. That's patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues. You can email us at thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Movies. The world is full of them. From low-budget crap fests to downright unwatchable. And only 2 men are willing to watch them all. So climb in and take your seat. This is Short Bus Cinema.
Let's do it.
Hey everyone.
everyone. This is Johnny Krug from Kruger Nation.
And this is Rick Morgan from the Helming Power Hour.
And we have decided to team up and take you where no one has gone before.
We're on a quest to find the world's worst movie, and we're doing it on the bus.
Driving through cult classics in every genre to find the holy grail of bad movies.
So if you're looking for something different and more fun than you can stand, then climb on in.
Short Bus Cinema is a proud member of Legion Podcasts.
That's right, yo!
Short Bus Cinema. We love to watch the movies you hate.
Okay, over on Facebook, Tim S. Turner says, I love it, if only because of my lust for Serena Grande and, of course, giant eyeball face. J.W. Durbin says, a movie so good, Charles Band named a magazine after it. Stefan Matander says, just watched it for the first time. Fun, if few kills. Tons of sleaze and stylishly shot. A bit soapy at times, but the entertaining dialogue helps. On par with A Blade in the Dark. Glad I finally gave the disc a spin. Thanks, THC. Tyler Elkin says, Serena Grande makes me delirious. Kyle Brookie says, Delirium, photos of Toya. This pseudo-documentary had some unique murders, but could have used a few more. J.J. Ellis says, this still looks like a good ad for Visine. I guess that's the giant eyeball reference there. Greg Wojcik says, I just watched the Blu-ray. I love this movie. Serena Grande is so damn hot. Amanda Reyes says, George Eastman is a honey. I just recently became obsessed with Lamberto Bava, and I've been watching and revisiting everything I can. I don't know that he's a perfect filmmaker, but he's brilliant. On the forums, Body Boy says, kind of boring. Poor Lamberto will never be as great as his father. And there's that thing again. Body Boy, you should know better. Mr. Palmer says, didn't care much for it. Mr. Palmer, you don't care much for anything. On Instagram, the Squint one says, own it, but only watched it once. Remember thinking it wasn't one of Lamberto Bava's better films. Eugene Weaver 9 says, I need to give this a rewatch. I own the Code Red Blu-ray and thought it was a slog to get through on first viewing. But as with a lot of these Italian films, they tend to grow on you with repeat viewings. It took me several viewings of Umberto Lenzi's wonderfully crazy Nightmare City to fully appreciate it. Maybe the same will apply with this one. Time to pull the Blu-ray off the shelf for another go-around. Pervula says, yes, brilliant surreal kills with a Simon Boswell beat and sleazy style make for another El Bava win. Film Skunk says it's okay. I like that name, Film Skunk. Aronga Gliardo? I don't know. Whoever your name is, says sleazy fun, a cheesy 80s score, red herrings, good visuals, the ridiculously busty Miss Grande, surreal kills. I mean, what the fuck is with that giant eyeball and bee mask? All this and a bizarre ending. No classic, but an enjoyable flick. On Twitter, Rob B Movie Cult says very enjoyable. Lamberto is very underrated. I actually like almost all of his films. Body Puzzle, Blade in the Dark, Demons 1 and 2, Macabre, and Blast Fighter is an absolute hoot. Robin says, love, love, love. Not sure why this one in particular isn't talked about more. I have a huge crush on Carl Zenny and love the character he plays in this. All great familiar faces. For me, this is up there with Demons and the like. Brandon Cooper says, love it. Ambitious, fun, visually splendiferous. Space Debris says, a total WTF film, bonkers to the core, and just plain mental. Whether it's enjoyable or not is another question. Doomed Moviethon says, it's pretty damn great. Fun, stylish, and ridiculous. The Bitter Bastard and Kelly Show says, wow, Bava really went apeshit with this one. The mystery is rather weak, but the bizarre visions of the victims that the killer has are different. The giant eyeball face was pretty cool, but some of the others were just odd. Serena Grande is the new Stefania Stella. Hey! Yeah, that's all the feedback I have on Delirium.
Excellent. Right. Well, thank you for everyone for writing in. And true to form, this has been a delirious episode. Hopefully,
very delirious. Only in recent minutes. Yeah.
Yes. Well, hopefully, much of it will be rescued in the edit. So, well, anyway, we're going to be recording our Patreon pick next. So, if you are a Patreon supporter, well, thank you very much, and we have some great stuff coming up, and we will at some point, because we are front loading a lot of stuff, as it were. We will be covering Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, which is Erik's pick. So more Italian horror madness. But Erik, I also believe it is your turn next time.
Yes. Well, we're staying with a European flavour. We're going to the mid-2000s, I think, ish, with a film that has many names. Switchblade Romance. It was released to us in the UK and Ireland, but it's known as High Tension in the US, and Haute Tension in its native France. So that's our next pick.
Excellent. Well, and we already know that that's been burning up the boards with its controversial ending. But well, thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues. And of course, we are going to be playing out with Boys, Boys, Boys by the bouncy Sabrina. So, well, thank you for listening to Hysteria Continues, and we will catch you next time. So say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye. Bye, bye. I hope you have a good time.
Bye-bye.
Boys. Bye, bye, bye.
Whether it's enjoyable or not. Shit.
Whoa.
Did you hear that?
You're sounding like a Dalek. Oh, hello.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Just keep.
This is this can be a fun one to edit. Have we lost Joseph? Hello? Is anyone there?
Are you talking, but you sound like a rock?
Well, you sound worse. Hello, Joseph. He's gone again. Can you...
I'll in again.
Yeah, you're sounding all right now.
What's still going?
Are you still there? Oops.
Yeah.
And we're getting sort of very... What the hell's going on? Hold on, I'm going to ring, if you can hear me, I'm going to ring off. Hold on now, so, okay. And then obviously you can edit in, hopefully.